So welcome, Wiebke. This is Nilima Bhat. I'm sitting in Mumbai and you're sitting in Germany. And
Yes.
We're going to have a Shakti Dialogue in the next 40-45 minutes or so, discussing some of the very important things you were bringing up in our conversation yesterday. And I thought it's important we record this not just for ourselves, but it may be useful for other listeners, other women we work with. So just to share with future listeners, Wiebke is a energy worker, energy healer. In addition to being a corporate executive, she does leadership consulting, training. I met her at the WIN conference where she was running a workshop on mindfulness and meditation in the workplace. Wiebke and I have some very beautiful memories together, where last year we did a journey around all of Germany, and we even went to Chartres in France, and we were purely guided by the sense that the land needs healing, and if we can simply use the power of our prayers, our intentions and our meditations, using the tools and techniques we have. Wiebke used the medicine wheel that she has learned, and I used the teachings of the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and we just felt there is a history of pain and perhaps some shame and guilt around what happened with the world wars in Germany, and that it is time for the national spirit of Germany and the collective spirit of Europe to really heal from these old wounds of the past, and to be able to reclaim the truth of who we are, and include everyone in the journey that the planet is on today, and for which we need the best of everyone, and we need to put behind us our wounds so that we can now claim our genius and bring that forth in service of the world. So we just followed our intuition. We went to some amazing places all over Germany, and it was very beautiful that at the end of it we asked for a sign from the universe if this work had achieved its purpose, and 3 beautiful rainbows appeared. One to the right of us, one to the left of us, and one to the front of us in order. It was quite magical. So Wiebke, you've really been a soul sister, and you straddle both the worlds very comfortably. So I see you as a Shakti leader, because you not only bring a more empowered way of working to the workplace. You hold your own power. You show up as a integrated, mature, feminine leader. You actually live this path on the inside and in your personal life as well. So the leader you are is the person you are. And I thought we should have this conversation because you can share something from your personal journey. So can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life right now? Your father is on the verge of transitioning. We are here connecting at a very holy time for you. And you were seeing the transition that's taking place from the way power was shared in your family in a very masculine model, and how you actually are seeing it transition into a more feminine model just because of the fact that you are now 2 daughters who are going to be the legacy your father leaves behind. So can you talk about what's going on?
Thank you very much, Nilima, for this so complete introduction of our friendship and our journey together. Indeed, it's a sacred time. My dad is on his way to the next plane, so to speak, for 4 to 6 weeks by now. Nobody believed that he'd be still here. And by accompanying him and by being in the family without his presence, I can feel that things are shifting. So think of it, we have a round dinner table, and we had all the family here. So my sister with her 2 daughters and husband, my own 2 daughters, my mom. We were all sitting around the table, and I was sitting in the place of my dad, and I could feel that everything was kind of fuzzy and unquiet, and something was just not the way we were used to. And really a fuzzy kind of feeling. And then a couple of days later, it was my mother's birthday. We went to the place where my dad is currently being cared for, and he managed to join us on a wheelchair. And we were again around a round table, all 8 of us. And my dad was there at the head of the table. Even if it was round, there was clearly the head of the table. And I noticed how everybody's attention really focused on him. We were all kind of aligning towards him. And what this felt like to me was like a pyramid, where you have one person at the apex leading, my dad, and everybody is just focusing their main attention on him. Yes, we have obviously side conversations, but the center of attention is with my father. And then, like that same evening, we were sitting again at home without him around the table, and I understood the fuzziness, because I'm kind of sitting in this leadership place, yes, but I'm not a pyramidal leader. I'm a circle leader. So what I'm doing, I'm kind of holding space for a circle where there's no one person at the top, but everybody's contributing in their way, like people used to do in ancient times when they were sitting around a campfire, for example, in the center. It's just a very different kind of leadership, and the fuzziness now is we are not used to it, and I notice it, but it's on its way to be built. And even in a company, I notice a similar thing, that the standard meetings around a square table, and then there's one leader who says, this is what we're doing, these are the points to discuss, and this is the outcome. And when I'm leading a meeting, yes, I set an intention of what I would like as an outcome, but then there are moments of silence, and they're like, who's leading? Well, I'm still holding the space, and you see suddenly ideas popping up, even from people who otherwise might not have contributed. So that's really the kind of shift I'm seeing, and it's uncomfortable. It is at times uncomfortable, not really what you're used to. And I think it's actually happening on a larger scale right now.
So when you say it's uncomfortable in the workplace, and that it's going to be challenging to achieve this kind of a shift in dynamic in how we trade in power, essentially leadership is about the responsible exercise of power to lead desired outcomes. So how do we share power? And in the old days, traditionally, power was ego-based power, based on social privilege, your rank, whether you're richer or poorer, whether you're the boss or the subordinate, whether you come from the developed world or the developing world. So there are all these social privileges that belong to one group of people over another group of people, right? Mm-hmm. And which was a much more masculine model of dealing in power. And as we're moving to a more Shakti-based leadership, we're saying we need a new consciousness in conscious capitalism. It also means we need a new power for the new consciousness. And this new power is what we're calling Shakti, right? Which is the innate power. So to shift from the social privilege power base to the Shakti power base, which is just your innate power as a human being, the power of your purpose, the power of your conviction and authenticity, the power of leveraging your innate masculine and feminine energies, the power of becoming a whole person, right? So archetypal forces within, how do you harness them and lead from that power? That was Shakti leadership. So you're saying it's not going to be easy, but since you're actually the living example of doing this on a daily basis, how do you think this shift in power can, what do we look for, and how can we make it easier? for ourselves?
Well, some thoughts that are just popping up as you were talking. One thing is, the key thing for me really is that everybody starts to own their own accountability and their own responsibility, their own contribution. And in a way, a circle makes this easier because you do need to take accountability for your contribution to the circle, which is less dangerous, if you want, than when you're in a pyramid. When at the same time, being in a pyramid, it makes it easier to give accountability to the one standing at the top, and then you are just there and you just follow what they're saying, or you resist what they're saying, but still you don't take accountability for your own actions. You always do everything in relation to the one at the top. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think in a circle, you're much more called to accountability of your own contribution. That's one thing. And the other thing that came to mind when you talk about power, we do need power in order to change things. Just by sitting there, nothing will change. So where's the difference in the use of power to abuse or to build? Where's the difference? It's always power. It's my personal power. And I think the main difference is in my inner, it's why do I do it? My motivation, do I do it from an ego base? Do I do it to get more power, to have power over others? Or do I do it in service of? So am I aware enough, am I mature enough to say whatever I do is in service for a bigger whole? And at that point, my use of power becomes more, let's say, enlightened.
Yes.
Or more in service to my community, in service to the world, in service to my family, whatever I'm giving my service to. But it's service. It's not for my own gain. It's for the gain of the community.
Beautiful. So, as we transition from the old way of being and doing to a new way of being and doing, you were sharing another story about how the old ways are still showing up around us, and in that moment, how it's important to just let it pass and not get triggered and react and keep it going, actually. So can you share that example that happened? And it resonated for me because it was something that's happening in my life right now as well. So I feel it's a collective thing going on.
Yes, I remember what you were talking. We were talking about how my father shared that he had talked to my cousin about how he now is the head of the clan, so to speak. There are my father has a brother and sister. Each of them has a son, and my father's brother is older, and this is his son. So it's like, you are now the head of our clan. And I noticed how my first reaction was one of anger, saying, well, I'm internally, not to him, but just within me, saying, well, I'm sitting at his table, at his place, at our family table. Why would my cousin be head of clan? And that was kind of personal pride kind of thing, and really a smaller version of me, not my wise me, but my small me. He can say what he wants. I'm simply gonna do what I want, and he can talk. And again, it's a smaller part of me reacting like it's like going against it, resisting it. And then the wise me stepped in, saying, "Well, this is the fact. You know, they did talk, and that is a fact. You know, I can go bitch with my mother, saying, all these men, what they talk about, and I'm giving attention to it, and I'm giving voice to it, and I'm resisting it. And in a way, just by doing that, I'm giving it power. By reacting to it, I'm giving it power. So if I just observe the fact, they talk. That's okay, they can talk. That's their reference model that they grew up in. I think it's really, they do this for, or my father does it for, because he thinks that's best for his family. That doesn't mean that I need to agree. That doesn't even mean I need to react. I just let it go. I don't even talk to my mom about this. I don't talk to my sister about it. I don't talk to anybody. So this conversation stays between my dad and me. and that's it. So I don't give attention to it. I don't give energy to it. And with that, it can just, I let it go. You know? And I think that is very often currently the case, that we resist so much the way men do things. Well, it's the best way they know. So it's if I start talking about it and bitching about it, I use all my time and energy for the bitching, and I don't use it to build my own way. So instead of focusing on all that I don't want, now I just sit back and say, so how do I want us to be in our family? And then I go to that instead of focusing on what the men said. That's their stuff. That's their thing to solve. It's not my stuff. My stuff is to find my own, to build my own circle, to tie back to what was said before.
Beautiful. We also talked about a third thing yesterday, which I think will be a good a closing kind of piece for this conversation, which was when we went around Germany, we had no idea why we were doing what we were doing in our pilgrimage. We were just guided by our inner call to heal the land and the collective consciousness of Germany and of Europe, and by healing ourselves, if we could heal the collective in some way, we went around with very pure intentions. It is interesting that it's going to be a year when we meet again now in Italy later this month, and we do a similar pilgrimage around Italy for healing the wound of the masculine. The German pilgrimage was to heal the wound of the feminine in the collective, and we are sensing that Italy and the pilgrimage around Italy will be to heal the wound of the masculine in the collective and in the land. 1 year, it's not even a year, it's interesting that Europe is facing this crisis, and because I'm writing my book on Shakti Leadership based on the hero's journey and the heroine's journey, the fact that everything has to journey in order to come out of its innocence and grow into the next level of maturity. And it has to be, if it doesn't do that on its own, a crisis is thrown upon it. Some kind of trauma has to be gone through. So what Germany went through and then came out of after the world wars and rebuilt itself, one unfinished business perhaps of not just Germany but all of Europe was what is the sense of national identity, what are boundaries, how do we really create a world that works for all, how do we create more inclusive and diverse nations and collectives. So what do you keep in and what do you keep out is such a human question at this time geopolitically for nations, right? And suddenly this one little child's photo, Elan, this toddler washed ashore on this beach, has awakened Europe's conscience. And Angela Merkel stands up there and says, I open the doors and let the refugees in. And thousands of people show up in German streets saying welcome. I think this is something huge going on. You and I are speaking at a very, very important time for Germany. And I'm just wondering, how does this, if at all, if the microcosm and the macrocosm kind of mirror each other in our own little way, the intention we set when we did that pilgrimage, and within a year we're seeing this happening. Are you making any connections there? Did we play a tiny but mighty part as we intended to in making a shift on behalf of everyone? What's going on in your sense?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think it's great that Angela Merkel so opens the doors, and I notice it's a woman.
Yes.
And I think Germany does have a legacy, call it a debt maybe to the other nations of opening up to refugees, just as our German refugees were found open doors when they were leaving the country that was no longer safe for them. So I think it's like a duty to receive the people that are asking for help, like our nationals were received in World War II. And the other thing that resonates very strongly with me is around the topic of fear. So yes, there are a lot of people in the streets receiving, like giving home to these refugees. You also hear voices, fear of too much Islam, fear of the foreigner, so to speak. And again, Ms. Merkel stood up the other day and said, we don't need to don't let us be guided by fear. And I think that is very important, because fear is so strong in our nation, in our culture, fear of what is different, fear of old age, it is so fear-based. And again, this is a shift we need to go through. I think it's larger than Germany, to find again a trust in life, and to not act out of fear, but act out what you know is right, which is what we're doing. We're opening up the doors. We act out of an intention of we know what is right.
It is so beautiful from where I'm sitting, Wiebke. You know, we were talking about a year ago, you and I, in our own small way, helping heal some of the negative karma of Germany. And here, less than a year later, we see here is a chance to heal that karma from the political will. And look at the karma. This was a country whose own Jewish people had to go and seek asylum in other countries. And so many other countries refused them that time, and the pain of that. And the same thing is now, it's come home. You know, would you now open your doors to other refugees just like your people had gone out seeking asylum elsewhere? So it's this law of karma is so amazing. It's making my hair stand. And what is very, it's a moment of truth for Germany, from where I can see it or sense it. Germany is the hero right now. It's being called to make that heroic journey. And having journeyed, having gone through its crisis and trauma and transformation, what is the gift that is going to come back and give the world? This is how Germany shows up on the world scene at this time. The choices Germany's leaders and people make, they will be such a huge role model for Europe and the world. And it'll really be like the return of the prodigal, I mean, wow, what an opportunity to make good.
And again, strongly comes to me this acting out of what is right rather than fear. And it's like overcoming fear, really let yourself be guided by what is right. That is kind of what's happening now. And people are just waiting for this kind of leadership, saying, do what is right. And then people do what is right. And at that point, tying back to what we said before, the question of power. Germany is a powerful country. And if we allow ourselves to be guided by fear, ourselves to be guided by what is right, and it is not the power of one person, it is like a moral right, or well, for me it is the spirit, what is right spiritually. I just know what is right. It's not rational, it's just the knowing.
And what is so beautiful is that the genius of Germany, the spirit of the German people, is innately a very compliant and disciplined nature, following the rules and laws, and doing what is lawful and legally told by your leaders. That seems to be something Germans do, and it's innate to their spirit. And that same thing was abused by the wrong kind of leader. But if that same spirit can be now harnessed by the right kind of leader, it can really show the world. It can become a very positive example for the world.
If the country can bring forth the right kind of leader, I always said the leader that can be a country, that can be a town, is reflective of the general like the population. So there is the people of Germany that brought forth somebody like Hitler, and now there's the people of Germany that brought forth somebody like Angela Merkel. So and this is not to venerate her. This is just, she's doing the right things now. She's leading through what is right rather than her own power. So it's representative also of the whole of the country.
We were talking about the Indo-German connection and how there is a very beautiful common shared values between the spirit of Germany and the spirit of India. And one of the principles from the Indian wisdom is the idea of dharma. What is the right thing to do? What is the dharmic thing to do? And it's that sense of righteousness and the power of that. When you stand in that dharma, you are fueled as if by the source of power itself, So from what you are saying, the way I relate to it is, you have a leader now who is willing to do the dharmic thing. Because the people are ready to take more accountability perhaps for their own leadership and who they elect as a leader and who they choose to follow. It's one thing to have the ability to follow, but before that you need to have the consciousness to discern who to follow.
True.
And it's as if Germany had to learn that lesson the hard way, but has learned it very well.
I've noticed in the past years or even decades that there were political groups far to the right with very extreme ideas, and democracy allows them to grow because that's what democracy is about. Everybody has a right to their opinion, and they got elected in some small parliaments, local parliaments, but when they tried to grow big in the country, they were gone within months. There was no big growing. So it's as if it popped up and it died, and it popped up and it died. And yes, there are small patches, and that's, I guess, the variety of the spectrum. You have people with extreme views, and you can allow them to show up, and in a way it's just a decision point. They have their role as well. So all the voters, all the people says, do we want this kind of leadership, yes or no? And they said no repeatedly. So that is kind of the people lesson in Germany, to say, and again, you're not fearful. It's like you allow it to show up, and then you just turn around and walk your way. You let it go, so it doesn't get any power anymore. And that's really what the people have learned. Yes.
You're talking about how what came up for me as you just spoke. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, that if countries with its diverse people and thoughts have to move forward together, how do we do it? Well, all you have to do is allow them voice, give them the freedom to speak and say what they want, but after that, only allow the force of the greater consciousness to choose what it wants to choose and move forward with. So you allow voice, but you then choose how to further act as a collective.
Exactly. And again, it's a matter of fear or trust. Am I fearful when I hear somebody speak like they used to speak in the police? Or do I trust that just as I know what is right or wrong, my fellow citizens know what is right or wrong, so we just all move on, and they have their opinion, but it's not the majority, and we move forward. So it's also a matter of, for me, it's also, again, a matter of stepping out of fear into trust.
So, we've had a very big picture conversation in the last question about the country Germany, But to close, I'd like to ask, what's your relationship with Germania? And how do you see yourself fulfilling that connection going forward?
That's a big question. It's a very personal question. In our tour last year, I was standing in front of the statue of Germania. So since then, she's kind of present. And as my father is transitioning and leaving a space open up here where I come from, where my roots are, that is where I will start this next leg of my journey. I feel I'm going to move up here and then again work like we did on our journey, working with the land, preparing the land, and kind of, I don't know, maybe local politics, who knows? Who knows? For me, the next step is finding a way to move up here and have my life here, my work here, and start contributing more to Germany.
Say about the ground, laying the ground.
Yeah, I've been, I come from this very small town in the north of Germany. It's called Schleswig. And I've seen a decline in the past decades. It's really, the big industry moved out, the big employers moved away, so it's become a very quiet little town, and there's been some quiet little leadership, and I can see this picking up. And as I was walking through the center of the town, I kept thinking, so what do I need to do for the people? What can I do with the people to waken up the people as if I needed to do that? And the strong impulse that came was, it's not about the people, it's about the country. So work with the country like we worked energetically on our tour through Germany, work with the country, reinforce the power places in this little town so that we're kind of prepared, like what you said, preparing the grounds so that then the plants can grow, the people can grow to their best ability. So I think that's what's going to happen in the next months in my life in this little country.
Wow. Now, as I hear you, I just feel you ring so true, and you're already on the path. It's unfolding so beautifully, and it's a good time. It's a good time for you to be waking up and stepping into your power and bringing that in service of your community and your country and the world. And I just feel so grateful that I have a Shakti sister far away in another country, and I know that there are many of us all around the world who are waking up, growing up, and showing up as we are called at this time. So thank you so much, Wiebke. I really wish you all the very best, and may Shakti be with you.
Thank you so much, Nilima. It's always such a joy to talk, because you, it's like you really have this gift of seeing what's happening locally, seeing this in a larger picture. Putting it in, and this deep rootedness in your Indian culture and the variety of gods and this big view of the universe. It really helps me also to see the little things that happen in my life, to see this in a larger picture. And it's been such a gift to know you and to travel with you. Thank you so much.
And in Italy soon.
Yes, in Italy.
The next phase.
Gonna be intense.
Looking forward. Lots of love. Bye, Wiebke.
Lots of love to you. Bye.
Bye.
Now you stop the recording.
Yes. Yay!
Wow, that was an intense conversation. My God.
Lovely. Now I have to see. Let's stop this.